Yeah, I doubt you were wrapping that book up in 5 seconds.
A
Of
little
all,
less. We did the Cliff Notes version. It's about 3 seconds.
Yeah, yeah, there you
man, that's real optimistic. The book was a beast.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to chew on that. And I read it like 2 months ago, so kind of started rereading it. And I was really glad I did. Not so much for catching new stuff, but just kind of reinforcing some of the stuff that stood out the first time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hefty, meaty.
very cool, man. All right, I want to invite everybody. It's beverage time. So
Mhm.
I said, bring your beverage. If you didn't bring a beverage, then you will be shunned. Because
Oh, Jacob, find something.
all right, fair enough. All right, here we go. Dan, come on, give me that glass of water, buddy. Give me that glass of water.
Very nice.
You don't know what's in there.
Yeah,
Right.
I know what's in there, bro. I know water is in there. You're the boringest drinking person in the world.
But maybe this time it has ice. Really living on the edge there.
Yeah.
Oh, Jake, you're using otter now, huh?
Oh, that's weird. I don't know how that popped in. I just started using it. That's kind of cool.
Isn't it cool? Isn't it cool how AI basically is just acting and doing what it wants in your life and just treating you like a slave? You love
Yeah.
that?
What is autopilot?
It's this AI transcription service. You invite it to your meeting and it takes notes for you.
Or
Which is
don't
fantastic.
or don't invite it to your meeting and it takes notes for you.
Yeah.
Just shows up and butts into your life.
Right? How do I kick them out? I don't necessarily want that. This is brand new. I've never used it before. So
Well, then maybe you shouldn't kick it out. See how it works.
no.
You're
Yeah.
good, bro. You can leave it on there.
Give us a full
All right.
rundown of the next meeting.
Totally, man. You could give me a written transcript. I use it in my Substack summary.
Okay. I'll let you know how it goes down.
Andrew Darlow's in the house. Yes,
Andrew, you're muted.
that's my buddy.
In the car and in the house. Hello, hello. I'm multitasking. It's nice to meet everyone. So
Dude, I'm so glad you can make it, man.
yeah, it's great. I enjoyed the summary.
Yeah.
Outstanding. You say
Nice
you're
to
in the
meet you.
car and in the house. Does that mean you're in your garage?
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know how it goes.
Yeah, one literal, one metaphorical.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. So let's see. We got enough people here where I think it'll be worth getting to know each other slightly. Most of us know each other, but some of us don't. So I say let's go around and each person say something that you're passionate about. And we can just go Brady Bunch. Well, let's see. I don't know if everybody has the same order that I do. Jake, I got you on the upper left. Is that right?
No, I'm in the middle of everything.
Okay, then we're just going to go in accordance with my order. So, Jake, you get to go first, upper left.
All right. Jake Fogg, owner of Copper Press. I do web development, custom stuff, hosting, all that fun stuff. Something I'm passionate about. I would say AI has been really fun lately. So
Yeah.
I've been really doing a lot of fun stuff with that.
Yeah. So how has that turned into a passion? Just real quick, because that's a pretty recent.
Gosh, I mean, it's just really transformed the way that I do a lot of work. And so I'm using it in one form or another literally every day. So, and by it, I mean like 8 different services. So
Yeah.
So I think I'm probably at like $40 a month on my monthly spend using AI. But man, it's been great. So I'm not complaining. It's worth it to me.
So, Jacob, is this actually you in the flesh right now, or is this just an AI bot that's filling in for you right now?
Coded himself.
I am not a robot.
Put himself in the matrix. He took the blue pill, man.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you, Jake. I will go second. Johnny Levy, CEO of Data Joe, which is a tech-enabled research company. And I'm in the publishing space. And I'm also the the catalyst for this book club. I've got a passion for books. I'll even say that. I just love books. I love learning from people who are way smarter than me. I love that. I've learned to love that. So, the whole purpose of this book club is to invite people in my community, mostly in the publishing space, but even people that are not in the publishing space, to be able to come in and share that joy with me and then grow together as leaders. Hey, sweetie. Hey, okay. Oh, my kids are home. That's crazy. So,
Hi, kids.
So yeah, inviting people into that passion, and specifically these books are going to be about business and leadership and things like that. And so, super passionate about helping other people grow as leaders, grow in their effectiveness in business, and all those things. So I'll pass it on to you, Jason. And meanwhile, my kids just got home. Didn't know they were coming home right at this time. I need to go put them on something, like a show or something. So I'll be back with Jason. You go next, then Dan, then Andrew.
Right on. Thanks, Johnny. And Jacob, I saw your AI just introduced itself over in the chat. Did you guys see that?
I know, right?
That is sick. That is crazy. I'd say, yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna look into this Otter Pilot. Cute name too. Yeah, so I'm Jason Martin. I'm the general manager and vice president at Alaska Business Publishing Company. We publish Alaska Business. A magazine's been going strong for about 38 years. I've been with the magazine 25 of those years now, and just really enjoy it. But the reason I'm here is because I just genuinely enjoy people. That's kind of been my thing since back in school when I was getting horrible grades because I was spending all the time in social quarters instead of in all of the school circles I should have been in. So I just genuinely enjoy people and communication, and it kind of led me into theater and improv and learning communication skills through improv, and it just everything about people just really intrigues me, and connections. And when I first met Johnny and found he was very much the same way, and just really about connecting people, and just really intrigued me. And I'm busting out of my comfort zone and kind of following the fear and reading a book, because books are bad monsters to me, despite my wife's best attempts to put cool books in front of me on a regular basis. So this is me following the fear and going after something I have never done before in my life, which is a book club. So this is our third book.
Yeah, man. This is number. Yeah. Actually, let's see. No, this is number 4, dude.
Did I miss one?
4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So exciting stuff, and I'm really excited to be here and to get share a book that's really exciting to me. This is how big things get done. So nice to meet all of you, and especially Jacob's Otter Pilot.
And then did you let them know, Jason, that you're leading? You're kind of I'm kind of your sidekick for this session.
I'm kind of leading today, and Johnny's my sidekick for this session. Now they know.
Now, if you don't know, now you know. All right, Mr. Rendio. Elaine, how's it going? Good to see you.
Hey, Elaine.
Your book club is blowing up, dude. If you include Jacob's AI robot overlord, you're at like 7.
It's incredible. And we'd have had more if we had known the robot overlord was going to be here today.
I know, for sure. Yeah. Come and interact with the robot overlord.
All right. Well,
they will take over the world.
Yeah. Yeah, there's crazy stuff. So I'm a fractional CFO, Data Joe. Also have a couple other businesses. Passionate about, say, probably missions, which is combining, meeting people and cultures and talking about things I'm passionate about, and traveling. So it kind of combines a bunch of passions into one.
Yep. It's the last place you travel.
Travel anywhere, probably Atlanta.
Yeah.
International, India.
Yep. One day he'll tell you all about the India travels. That's an adventure right there. That would take a long time.
Yep.
All right, Elaine, what you got? We're just saying quick intro and then what we're passionate about.
Okay. My name's Elaine. I live in Pennsylvania. I work in Colorado, Louisiana, Wisconsin, and God knows where all else. And I'm passionate about research.
Mhm.
I
Doing the-
seem to spend the majority of my time researching all sorts of things.
You gonna, can I prod you a little bit to tell them about genealogy?
Sure.
Or am I opening up?
Uh,
Yeah.
I am in the process of becoming an accredited genealogist. So in my spare time, my day job is as a researcher, and in my spare time, I'm becoming a professional genealogist. So I could spend all my nights doing research too. It's lovely.
Consistent. You're consistent, Elaine. I got to give
I'm
that to
I am a one-note pony, or whatever the phrase is.
It's now one note pony. That's way better than one trick pony.
Yeah.
The vision of a pony just singing one note is what much more interesting.
I know, much more. All right, Andrew, what you got, man? What are you passionate about? Or, well, tell us about
All
yourself.
right. Yes, I've changed my setting. Well, I'm here thanks to Johnny, and it's just been amazing on LinkedIn. So thank you for that. I'm a photographer, a writer, an inventor, and live here in central New Jersey. And my passion for the last couple of years has been inventing toys and games. So I've been playing games with my son, who's on the autism spectrum, and I'm actually here at a therapy session. So it's like always toys and games around, and so I'm learning and I'm developing and pitching to companies. So that's really what my passion is right now.
And how's the pitching coming? We've actually just, me and my family have gotten a chance to play some of his games and experience some of that creativity within our family, which has been really cool. What stage are you at, Andrew, with the pitch?
It's good. It's good. It's just it takes a lot of time and effort, but I've pitched to about 30 companies over the last year or two, and it's one of those things where you just keep going and going. So I'm confident that something will be picked up in the next 6 months. So I will keep you posted.
That's amazing, man. I love
Good
it.
luck with that.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's exciting.
All right, so now to Jacob's autopilot. Yes or no question. Does the government know your intentions are to take over the world? Yes or no?
I'm following along the transcript right now, and it hasn't answered yet, but I'm sure we'll know before the meeting's over and the robots are busting down Johnny's door.
I know.
Right.
Come and get me. All right, and I'll pass it to you, Jason. Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Right on. Thanks, Johnny. And thanks for hosting us up and for our record turnout here for the book. Again, How Big Things Get Done. This book I first found just because I was starting a big project here at work and I was stuck. Like, how do you start something big? One of the things we do there at work is we're a monthly publication. So it's this monthly cycle is in our DNA. We don't even think about it. We just show up and do a monthly magazine. And I'm sure 37 or so years ago when we were starting this, that was a big project. Now, again, that's just kind of a Monday for us. That's just what we do is this big project every month, which is a magazine, but it doesn't seem big anymore because we've done it for so long and just so many cycles of publishing this magazine. So now we're kind of breaking outside of our comfort zone and starting a new digital project. But I just got stuck on how to start this thing. And what I found myself was doing all this planning, but never just felt like I was doing anything. So I originally found How Big Things Get Done for that reason, was to find a way to kind of get to that next level, get to that next step. And I was pleasantly surprised to find out one of the chapters where it talks about that the planning is kind of the most important part of the doing. So here I felt like I was stuck because I wasn't doing, but I was planning, and planning just doesn't feel like you're making traction. It doesn't feel like you're making progress. So I was really relieved in reading that, like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be in this process. This is what you're supposed to do, is that time spent in planning is going to save in the long run, because for all the reasons mentioned in the book, especially cost and time overruns that are so apparent in these larger projects. And I also appreciated that it dumbed it down, and the examples it used with like even just that kitchen remodel that it talked about, how that's no different than building the Pentagon. Yeah. And how it gets, they had hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost overruns just on a kitchen remodel. And I thought it was a cost overrun when we had to buy like 3 extra cans of stain for our deck because I hadn't planned enough for that. So not really a huge project, but but big on my back deck. So with that, I just first kind of want to see what other people's kind of key takeaways for that for the book was. What did I guess maybe even why did you pick up the book? I mean, other than Johnny assigning it, what did you get from the book? Jacob, I'll throw you under the bus. How about you go first?
Do it.
Yeah.
I would say the whole find the Lego concept was super impactful for me. You know, my core business is helping publishers with their entire web technology stack, and so the deeper I go, the more commonalities I'm finding, and the better solutions I'm finding for that. And so to keep that in the back of my mind, hey, I should always be looking for the building blocks so that as I work with these publishers, I can help them assemble. Like that's been a really good, it's been a really good indicator for me, you know, just to remember that and be looking for those things. And so, you know, I have been making changes to my recommended technology stack. And what's nice is the clients I have now are basically of the mindset, I want it to look the way I want it to look, and I don't really care how it works. And so it's been an evolving process where I'm slowly starting to standardize from one to the next exactly what pieces make up the puzzle. And you know, that's kind of a goal of mine over the next few months is to really be focusing on that, so that as I move from one to the next, I know exactly what's there. I'm not having to reinvent the wheel. I'm not having to make a lot of changes. I'm not having to learn 12 different technologies. You know, just get everybody on what looks to be the best option. And I feel like that probably has the exact same implications on the magazine publishing side. You know, like it's like, what are the building blocks? And maybe you're interchanging them from one publication to the next, right? But yeah.
Yeah, those Legos and that modularity, how you can just, you know, use existing technology, snap them together and make something new. Hit it, Johnny?
Yeah.
I was wondering, I feel like I get the concept of the Lego, but I'd love it if somebody could, does anybody have like a good, really simple example of where they've seen that? That would help me. I get things, but then there's that level deeper where it becomes like simple. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I've got an example list. Yeah, Jacob, hit it.
Oh, no, go ahead. You got it.
Oh, I'd love to hear from one of you guys. I'll be talking a lot anyway.
I would say just in the Data Joe world, I mean, we're using that all the time. You know, we have certain building blocks that comprise each type of product that Data Joe produces. And those even between project types, we're using similar blocks within those product offerings. You know, and over the last year, Data Joe has put a lot of effort into that very thing. And I think that kind of standardization, that kind of compartmentalism has made a drastic change on the organization.
It's true. Yeah, that's a lot of Caleb and Lydia have been doing. So you'd say a Lego would be like setting up, like the ability to set up a platform that facilitates voting, right? We can do that in our sleep.
Sure.
We can do that in our sleep. We can do it whenever we want. We do it in a day. You know, we actually had a client come at us super late in the process. They had like been kind of left high and dry by a different vendor. They said, look, can you just do a Top Doctors for us? And can you get it done in, you know, can you get it done in 3 weeks or something like that? And we did it successfully. But because the Lego, I mean, I guess that would be an example of a Lego, right? We could do that because the system was built out and defined in such a way that it could be repeated and reproduced forever, whatever, just given a new context, right?
Yeah, for us at Alaska Business, I mean, Data Joe really was that Lego for us. You guys already had that technology. You guys already had the ability to do Top Docs, Legal Elite, things like that. And that's something we were looking for our own website. So rather than us try and reinvent that wheel or create something new, working with professionals at Data Joe, we already knew you guys. So it was really just a matter of bolting that onto our website, bolting that into what we're already working on. So to be able to just take an existing technology and add it to what you're already working on rather than have to create something new is kind of that modularity and how it worked for us. So
Yeah. That's good. That does it for me.
any other key takeaways for anybody else?
Well, I had one. I really like the Elon Musk examples because when you talk about a real person doing real things, it makes them more believable. And how he took a small piece of the Gigafactory and made it work. And I don't know if that was part of the Lego part or if that's part of a different theme of this book, but I like the fact that it's like you make one and then you just make like 20 more.
Right.
That happened in Denmark. They're going across to Norway. It's a major project. They built like an 80% concrete section of the tunnel, massive, just so that they could test it. So I don't know, it's sort of the Lego thing, but personally, I've been asked recently, I had the opportunity to present to companies through someone who I've learned from. What I love about her approach is it doesn't have to be perfect. So I send like really raw stuff to her, short little videos and short little overviews. And it's so nice. And I realized I can be doing this myself. Just like people who write, they do an unedited write. I could be doing that too for myself, not just for her when I develop my toys and games. So there's something there too with that there's a word for it when you just do an unedited throw out of whatever you have. So
Like
that's
stream of
sort
consciousness.
Stream of consciousness, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I think that's really powerful. It may not have been explained, but that's sort of to me related.
Yep.
Yeah, Andrew, you're also kind of talking about the one chapter about Pixar planning, right? How they put so much effort into the planning, they put so much effort into the pre-production that when it comes around time to production, they're not making the mistakes because they made those mistakes and learned from those mistakes, so they're not mistakes. And they did all that during the planning. So like when you're talking about your toys and things like that, it'd be very easy just to throw plans off to a company and have them start making something for you. But if you have a chance to play test that and get it in front of other kids and get it in front of other adults and get your feedback and just keep iterating on that, much like they do in Pixar, how they just take, a storyboard, which starts with napkin sketches that they discuss over a conference room table. And then that evolves into this multi-billion-dollar film franchise. And I love that you've connected those two themes here too, with the modularity, like of the Gigafactory, where it's kind of stamping these things out, but also with the Pixar planning side of things and how those two things kind of tie together in your world, especially with games.
Yes, and Toy Story is a perfect example. If you read any of the bios, they threw out a huge amount because Woody was too mean.
Right.
And then they learned from that because it must have cost them a lot of time and energy.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was speaking to at the beginning of this meeting. It's like that planning feels like wasted time to me because I don't have anything to show for it at the end of the day. At the end of the day, I've got a few spreadsheets and a few Google Docs, but it's not like tasking has been assigned. It's not like anybody's been notified, like, here's what you're supposed to be working on and here's the progress we're making. So, but for them to so wholly commit to that they're willing to spend the majority of their budget just in iterating. Just iterating on a concept and just continually chipping away at it until it gets to an audience who then rips it apart, and they have to go back to the drawing board with that Woody example where and they even and that was before I know the example you're talking about. I saw the Toy Story DVD extras, and that was before they had Tom Hanks as the voice actor. So before they assign a lot of the voice actors or spend the money to get them recording dialogue, they do just test actors and a lot of times just the animators. So, and a voice actor obviously brings so much to that role. So what they were finding is the voice actor had a lot to do with the energy and the feeling that was being brought to those scenes. So in that example, they said, okay, well, we need to throw out the illustrator. We actually need to get somebody in here. We need to get a voice actor. And I think it may have even been Tom Hanks that they brought on earlier in the project than a lot of the other voice actors for the purpose of hearing him say these same lines and seeing if they could get past the kind of a negative Woody and into kind of a more positive Woody and into a fun, lighthearted Woody is what they were looking for the movie. But again, just that iterative process of chipping away at this thing before you actually, before the rubber really hits the road and you start moving that machine.
Yeah, and then it becomes like a factory, even though each one is an artistic piece. Yeah,
and that's a great example of that Elon Musk example of like that modularity, right? They just keep pumping these things out, and they just keep making these small pieces to make these bigger pieces to make these movies to make billions of dollars for them. So I'm hoping before this meeting's over, we each have our $1 billion idea,
Yeah. Get your Lego.
at least.
Try to get your Lego.
Cool. Any other takeaways from it?
I have one, but
It's,
I'm gonna wait.
it,
You first,
Elaine?
Elaine.
okay. It fit into, I'm sort of in year 3 of what started out as a 5-year plan. And at this point, it's like a 6 or 7-year plan, because your 5-year plan has to keep growing as you go. But so I liked the, because yeah, if you have something that you want to do that's going to take a lot of time and effort and money, you can't most of the time just go out and do it. You have to plan. So when they were talking about figuring out where you want to go and then work back from it, I knew
Sure.
what I wanted to be doing in 5 years. So I worked back from it. I've taken classes, I've done this, I've done that, I've done whatever. All some better than others, heading towards this goal.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that
that's
was
part of it.
talking about
spoke to
working
me.
right to left. Yeah, working from the end of the project backwards. Yeah, starting at the end and working back towards the beginning.
Because if you don't know what it is that you want at the end, it's really hard to plan to get there.
Yeah, and then also, and this is something I learned in that process. That's one of the things I've done for most of my projects is this working right to left concept. I'm sure all of us have, right? That idea that you're going to start at the end and work back to the beginning. But I never thought about that as a way of making sure you're staying on task. I never thought about that as a way of keeping you in the guardrails, kind of between the lines of where you're going. It's so easy to get off track and go after what's cool and shiny and new when you're working on a project. But then it's always good to come back and say, okay, well, what is our ultimate end goal? How, what was the path we laid out for ourselves, and have we diverged from that path? Have we gotten off of the main track of our goal because we saw something shiny and knew that we wanted to go after that would be cool to add to this thing? Yeah, neat stuff.
One other thought on the planning side is, I've done a lot of planning, right, with a lot of businesses, and the planning stage can get really discouraging when it's doing what it's supposed to do, which is you plan, and that means you throw out some stuff that doesn't work, or you spend a lot of time planning and then not doing some things. Not everything you plan is a good idea.
Right.
So that can make it, you spend a lot of time on the planning phase, and then a lot of that feels like wasted time,
Right.
even though it wasn't, right? It would have been incredibly wasteful had you not done it and gone ahead and ran with those ideas. But it still feels wasteful in the moment, because you look back at your last week, you're like, I spent all this time doing stuff that I'm never going to do anything with.
Yeah.
But he also talked about that in the book, about not getting so caught up in the, I don't want this to have been wasted, to not realize you have to cut it loose sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
that was really impactful to me, that one point. That's exactly the way you said it, Elaine, that you can't count the previously spent cost. You have to consider the current cost. And that I feel like I get caught on that often. It's like, well, I just spent 40 hours on this. Like, it would be ridiculous for me to stop now. Whereas
Right.
it's like, well, what will it take to bring it to completion? And is it better to just cut now and take a different route, rather than continuing to hit my head against the exact same wall?
Yeah, that's that commitment fallacy that it talks about within the book, right? Where it's
Yeah.
talking about like or that sunk cost fallacy, right? Where you get to that point where you're like, well, I've got 100 hours already in this project. I've got to keep going. I've got so much invested in it. It would be wasted time otherwise. But at a certain point, you got to look at it and say, oh, wait, no, I've learned what I needed to out of this planning session. I need to move on to something else because I have realized this isn't what we're looking for, or isn't the cost we're looking for, or the time commitment.
Yeah, that was one of the psychological factors. I love how he broke it into, there was a psychological factor and a power factor. he said, I
Mhm.
think it was either psychology and power or psychology and politics. I think he used politics and power kind of interchangeably, but
Right.
that there's kind of a personal psychology thing, which is what makes the house go wrong, right? Because I have this aversion to loss. Like I've already sunk this much money in. If I don't keep sinking money, then all the money I sunk will be wasted. And I'll have to acknowledge that it was wasted. And it's like, and that feels like, even as I'm saying it, that feels like logic to me. Right? It feels logical. It's emotional.
Right.
And he's saying, no, you can't think like that. You got to basically erase the past and in the moment say,
Mhm.
you know, does this make sense to invest more money in as a project, or is there a better use of my resources? Right. And then to force yourself to get out of your emotions and, you know, out of your flaws and out of your entitlements and out of your ego, right? And make a practical decision that most would look at and say, wow, I can't believe you did that. You know what I mean? Like most people would just be like, what do you mean you just stopped? You wasted $500,000 on a $100,000 remodel and then you just stopped? It's like, yeah, you don't know if he would, when he goes all the way to $1 million, now he's been out of his house for 2 years. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Right.
gosh, dude. And so I just bought myself maybe an extra year in my house. Right. So, but how, like, yes, first of all, it's just hard as a person to think that way. There's another book out there called Sway. Have you heard of it? Sway, it might not be Malcolm Gladwell, but it's another author that's in that lane. And he talks about aversion to loss. Commitment fallacy, he calls it aversion to loss. Same principle, exact same principle. And he describes the Vietnam War in terms of that. Like there was a point at the Vietnam War where we were like, okay, we're not going to win. We could spend $1 billion and multi-billions of more dollars, but we're convinced we're not going to win. But then they spent the billions and billions more dollars. You know what I'm saying? Like they knew, and they still, because of aversion of loss. And I think that basically highlights the other piece, which is politics or power and those dynamics, which have a lot more to do with even just straight up dishonesty, right? Like that was amazing to me, where it's like people will quote the project out at a price that they know will be accepted, even though they know it's wrong. Like they know it's going to be 4x, 5x more than that, but they know it'll never get pushed into production. But if they can get it pushed into production, then those psychological triggers kick in, where it's like, well, we're already $1 million in, we might as well be 4 million in, right? And so they're counting on that. People that are like literally counting on that. Oh gosh, dude. And then it's like, yeah, I can see how really, really bad things go wrong.
But the reverse is also true. And sometimes it's easier in retrospect to say, oh, they should have. Well, a lot of times it's easier in retrospect to say, oh, you should have cut your losses then, or oh, you shouldn't have cut your loss. Because my junior year in college, maybe, I was taking a social class and we had this really hard test and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my God, this is going to kill my GPA. I've got to get out of this class while I could still cut it with no harm, no foul. I cut the class. I ran into the professor who said, you got an A on that test. Why did you cut it? Why did you quit? But to me, it was like, hey, I don't have a handle on this. I should get out before it hurts me. And it's really hard sometimes when you're in the moment to know, are you jumping too soon or are you hanging on to a dead fish? You know?
Yep.
Yeah, and kind of rewinding the same discussion on this idea that like the commitment fallacy is taking it back to the that think slow, act fast, and the example they used with the Pentagon, where the Pentagon was this pet project that I think he was a colonel at the time.
Yep.
And have any of you guys seen the movie Oppenheimer?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Movie. Not all of you, not yet. Oh, get to the theater. You were all watching Barbie instead. Is that what happened? I should have. I meant to have this research before today, so we'll have to look it up, or maybe maybe your otter pilot will be able to answer the question for us. But one of the characters in there, the colonel that is in there that is overseeing the project that Oppenheimer's working with, I think is the same character and the same real life human who was the planner behind the Pentagon that's referenced in the book. I got to look that up to be sure, but I'm pretty sure because he references leading the Pentagon project that's what he was talking about in the movie. So just kind of an interesting segue between the book and that Oppenheimer movie. I don't have any Barbie tie-ins, so you're gonna have to make those yourself.
Make
but
one
in the
up,
book here,
Jason. Make one up.
okay, we'll get one before this is over. But that idea of, before the commitment fallacy, before you get to the point of no return, is that think slow, act fast, and that's what they're talking about with the Pentagon, is how much planning went into that. And they also, again, use that modularity idea when they decide, like, well, instead of it being 5 oddly shaped sides, let's make them all the same so we can make a factory that's just churning out offices for the Pentagon, that they can basically kind of bolt these things onto each other and make this 5-sided Pentagon. But that wasn't before. They were in the wrong place. They were in the wrong location. They were destroying a view from Arlington Cemetery. All these missteps with that project. But then there was also that ego attached to that, where the guy putting the project together was like, no, this is my project. I don't need the experts telling me what I need to do. Until it was finally a general who said, no, you need to listen to the experts. And it took somebody else to help him break out of his ego.
It was the president himself. That's what it took.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So
on his way to the site to tell him, stop, bro, because he wouldn't stop.
Yep. Yeah, and he had all the best intentions, right? When they were putting the planning together for this, they were going to use existing land that they already had. They were going to use existing services that they already had in place, instead of like creating a factory that could turn out office buildings for the Pentagon. So that idea that they went into it with the best intentions, and then it kind of started to go awry. But instead of recognizing that it was going awry, he was more about, let's get this project done. He was in that think fast, act slow mentality, right? To get the thing done, instead of the more efficient think slow, act fast. So spend that time in the planning. Make sure you check with the experts. Make sure you do your iterations. Make sure you put it in front of a test audience of children to make sure that they can play with the toys and games to make sure that they're working. Jumping examples there for Andrew. Obviously not talking about the officers at the Pentagon. Though with the Vietnam example, they could be considered children. A lot of ego and stuff going into, obviously, some choices made there. That
was your Barbie tie-in right there.
That was the Barbie tie-in. I mean, there's the toys. Yeah, the toy tie-in. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, good connection there. So moving on to some other questions for the book. Let's see here. We've got lessons that stuck with you. So we've talked about some of the key takeaways. Were there key takeaways that you that have stuck with you, that you're for me, example was that planning is part of the doing. That was one of my big lessons that really is going to carry with me as I move forward. Are there any other lessons stuck with you?
I mean, in my case, I was just frustrated, even in the short summary, of how much money a government can waste in a short amount of time. I mean, they could throw away $1 trillion, a state, a country. And I mean, I've heard things like shoulder-fired missiles went from $100,000 to $400,000 each in a very short time. I think that there's a problem, a deep problem, and I think thanks to our companies, many of our companies who have shown how to get things done under a budget, I think there's a lot to unpack with regard to how countries and communities can waste money.
Yeah, man. It's astounding, like what he describes. Yeah. And this is a person who, you can tell he's like the watchdog, right? Like people are like, oh crap, here comes Bent Fleeberg or whatever, how you pronounce his name. Like, oh no, we don't want him looking into our numbers. Because you can tell he just gets some satisfaction about calling people out and holding people accountable and like holding their feet to the fire. Because in the book, he's like naming names. Like, yeah, California, y'all did this. Yep. He keeps it. Y'all are basically my poster child for what not to ever do. California government. you know, but it is just astounding, scary how much waste
Yeah.
can happen from the things he's describing.
And it's hard to undo it when you have people in power who end up moving right into the companies that are often making the most. And
Yeah.
there's example after example after example. Enron, Pfizer, it's just endless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good examples.
Yeah.
Any other lessons that stuck with you? Things you're going to take away from the book?
I'd say for me, it's so he puts it the right to left thinking is a key takeaway for me. And I think he said it a couple different ways that I liked, but I kind of created my own analogy of like a mental masterpiece. So when you're starting the project or you're starting to move towards a goal, like go ahead and picture the masterpiece in your mind and then write it out, right? Like write out what the masterpiece would look like so that you can come back to the masterpiece when you're in the weeds of the project. So it's the exact same principle that he's talking about. It's just that I put that terminology on it to, you know, I'm an artist, you know, and a writer. And so that kind of connects with me, like, man, what would it look like to start with the end product in mind and then build that excellent vision and put words around and concepts around what excellence would look like, as a concrete way to know I'm heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and that's a great example to you know, even in your own mind's eye, hang that masterpiece, hang that picture, so you're staying on task. You're always moving towards that goal, that masterpiece. And that really is that working from right to left mentality, right? So you have that target in mind the whole time you're moving forward the project. 'Cause it's so easy to get distracted and to get hung up on one small step,
Right.
and then take a step back and actually look at that masterpiece and say, oh, that's where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good takeaway. Good lesson.
What a powerful question, right? Like one of the most powerful questions that I ever get asked or that I ask other people is like, what do you want? Right? Like, what do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And forcing yourself to articulate, what do I want this to look like? You know, or what do we want this to look like? And because that language actually digs into the soul, right? Like the passions, the desires, all that kind of stuff. It starts to get the heart engaged.
Yeah.
So I love how he's saying start with the why, you know, like he always starts with the why question. Why are we doing this? Why do you need a kitchen remodel? You know, we want to feed more people. Okay, well, you have less room in your house. If you have a bigger kitchen, you want to do that. You know what I mean? Like you could have put a bullet in that idea before it ever started. So yeah, starting with why and what do you want?
Awesome. Over in the chat, I posted up the notes from this session. Just so
Beautifully
you
done,
guys
by
have
the
it.
way, Jason. Beautifully done.
Oh, thanks, sir. Thank you.
You do my notes every time.
I'm not going to have to because I've got this new AI bot that I'm going to start using. Maybe you've heard of it. It's Autopilot.
Lego. You got a Lego.
So I've got my absolutely, yeah. I'm going to use this in all my future Zoom meetings because we're always trying to reference and go back to things that we said in Zoom meetings and trying to remember what it was. I've got a second screen here and I'm following along with the Autopilot as it's transcribing, and it is so fantastically accurate with its transcription that it's doing right now in real time. It's phenomenal.
How can you see that?
I got a second screen. Yeah. So over in the chat, the Autopilot, I keep wanting to say Otterbot, like Otterbox. But yeah, I think the first chat in the chat there was from the Autopilot that had a link to this.
That might have been before I came in.
Lily, do you see the chat? Are you able to get into it?
I can see the chat, but I don't see a link from the. Oh, there
Correct.
it is. Okay.
Yeah, it should be the very, very top. Yep.
I just shot it to you.
So you won't have to read my notes because you could just read the Autopilot's notes. Yep.
I tried one of the Zoom bots, Fathom, and it made me crazy. And it made all the people I spend all my time Zooming with crazy. What is that? Why are you recording us? Why are you... I was taking notes. So I had to uninstall it.
For our Zoom
didn't-
meetings, we were using the transcription tool built into Zoom, and it just wasn't accurate. So we found common phrases we were trying to search for when we were going back to reference Zoom meetings, and we just couldn't find them, even knowing that was what the topic we were talking on. So we stopped using that transcription tool, but I think I may have found a new one here thanks to Jacob.
Yay.
Very
Yeah.
cool, man.
So Jacob, if you're
I
on
just-
commission, it's working. Andrew, hit it.
I just want to let you know I have to run, but this has been fantastic. I hope to join everyone again, and thank you, Johnny, and everybody.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, we have
It
full
was so good to
transcription
have
and
you,
notes.
Andrew. Thank you for coming, brother.
Thank you. Bye
Nice to
bye.
meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, guys, I'm sorry, I'm on deadline for a project, so I should probably go pretend I work here for a living.
Somebody
like, you know,
should.
Somebody should. But it's been lovely seeing you all. Bye-bye.
Elaine, you as well.
Yes, Elaine.
But
Look for an email or call from me about genealogy in the future.
Okay.
That's a big project I'm taking on and need some help. So maybe
I'm
employing your
the one.
services.
Jason,
I
she's
just
one,
got
dude.
I got an email last week from a friend who wants me to look for his father, which is fine. But apparently he self-published his autobiography a year and a half ago. And he said, to get started, you could go to Amazon, and he gave me a link. It said, I suggest you buy the hardback for $16.95. And it's like,
Good sales pitch.
yeah, generally one does not go to a professional genealogist and say, hey, buy your background notes.
Nice.
But I'm happy to give anyone ideas if they're getting started. See ya.
Elaine, thanks. All
She's-
right.
Jason, she's the one, dude. She's passionate about genealogy. She's the only person I've ever met in my life who is passionate about genealogy. Like,
That's fantastic.
so yeah.
When
Sure.
my grandfather passed away a few years ago and left to me all of the family genealogy, and I had worked with him over the last decades to kind of get those records from paper records into computer records and get it a little more modernized. So I'm not just taken over blind. I at least understand the direction he was going with a lot of this, and that's how he spent his family vacations. He and my grandmother would travel the world looking for relatives and get them plugged into this database. But now me
That's
taking
amazing.
over and trying to combine some old records with new records and having some discrepancies between them. So I've been looking for a professional who could help. So everything happens for a reason.
Yeah,
And there
man.
was Elaine.
That makes me so happy, dude. You're
Yeah.
gonna get to experience Elaine at her happiest.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's cool.
she's doing that kind of work.
Yeah. So let's back to the book. Let's so what surprised you most about well, actually I rewind just a little bit. What's impacted your work the most? So we've talked a lot about some of the key concepts here, but are there things that you're actually immediately able to apply to your work?
Oh, Legos.
Legos.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Yeah,
I-
and that was a big one for me too.
I haven't had much chance for application. I suspect Legos will probably be the one though.
yeah, Legos is the one I've been thinking about how to apply it.
Yeah. I will say that the think think fast, act slow, whatever that is, that was pretty impactful too.
Think
the
slow, act
whole-
fast. Yeah.
yeah. That part. That was
Yep.
was also really useful.
Yeah, it's interesting too, like the Legos that we all kind of touched on that. Also interesting that came so late in the book, and that was such a big takeaway for me as well. That
Oh yeah.
I even like this digital project we're talking about. I mean, it's daunting to think about all of the parts, but when I start breaking it down into just the key components of it, like here's a little bit of Data Joe, here's a little bit of the web developer we work with, here's a little bit of the other publishing companies we work with, and I'm able to kind of piecemeal this thing together with other experts to put this thing together, so I don't have to come up with or invent the whole thing myself. So again, just
Mhm.
interesting that Legos was a big takeaway for all of us.
It's very
what-
practical. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to move on to the next question. And what surprised you most about the book?
This was already said, but I would say the sheer depth of waste.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because really the waste, he pointed out the waste is even worse than the numbers show.
Mhm.
Like those are bad numbers with a lot of fudging.
Right.
Right.
And it also surprised me was that like these massive city plans or these massive like they use I think it was at the Tokyo subway or the subway project that went so awry and was hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars over budget. And they just went in that, well, like, oh yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. It's just supposed to be over budget. These are big projects.
Mhm.
And like, it was the Australian Opera House, Sydney Opera House, that they were talking about, how they just expected it to go so over budget, but they didn't have any idea how over budget. But just that idea that there is that depth of waste that is almost an unspoken factor in all these mega projects that they just expect it to go that far over budget.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like there's a lot of incentive not to, like if these big planners are getting the jobs anyway. The Hoover Dam was a great example of that, where they came in under budget, they come in under time. So what incentives were there for those, for the contractors and for the workers and people working on that to get it done ahead of time and under budget? If it's just assumed there's going to be this depth of waste anyway.
Well, there's
Yeah.
there's almost a moral underpinning of this book, like a moral, like integrity. I think that's he's kind of calling for that, and it bothers him that people don't have that integrity of doing what they say, or they're saying things that are not true and they know they're not true, and that's just acceptable in terms of how business gets done. You can see him pushing against that, right? Like the moral corruption. He doesn't call it corruption. He doesn't use like strong language like that, but that's what he thinks. Right.
I think he says it in a kinder way, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, there is that just lack of caring, that or even corruption that goes into just the poor planning that costs hundreds of millions, billions of dollars on these mega projects.
Yeah, intentional poor planning too. Like saying, yes, there's this accidental kind of like flaw of human design, right? Humans are flawed. And one of the ways we're flawed is our brains don't want to let go, right? Our brains don't want to spend all the time to think about the future. We just want to go. And, so there's that, but then there's also that dishonesty piece. So that was surprising to me, that basically it's an expose in a lot of ways. Like this book is an expose. It's yes, how do big projects get done, but there's more going on here in terms of calling out an immoral culture and an immoral practice.
Right.
But I would say it was his initial estimates that shocked me, which was 95% of projects go over budget, over schedule, or both. Right. And then 8.5% of projects hit the mark on both cost and time. And then 0.5% nail cost, time, and benefits. So, I mean, half a project of 100 actually has ideal results.
Right.
And so that's that iron law he's talking about, right? The iron law, the unbreakable law, that you're planning to do something, it's probably going to suck by one or more of these metrics.
Right.
So can you take for granted that what you're about to do is going to suck? you know what I mean? Yeah.
There's that table in the back of the book too that kind of goes over projects. I think it's base rates for cost risk. I've included it here in the notes, so when you guys get this, if you want to look through it. But it's where it talks about like nuclear storage has a mean cost overrun of 238%, right? But almost half of the projects will go into 427%. So, greater than 4.5 times what they have estimated the project to be at. And this goes through, and it in this table, it talks about IT, it talks about buildings, rail projects, airports. Again, that was all of his notes from all of those projects that they analyzed, something like 15,000, I think it was, that they put to a table to say, okay, here's what you can expect to spend over your planning. And that to me is really interesting, because it's something that we can actually use. You can look at that and say, okay, well, I've got an IT project I'm working on. How does that compare to other IT projects when they go over to cost overrun? And that he's kind of done the math already for us. So that was a kind of a surprise to me to see that they made that table in the back of the book that's so accessible. So you can just kind of look at a project you're working on and estimate overruns, just looking at that.
And the only remedy is plan. Spend more time in your planning phase, right?
Right.
Like,
Yep,
you want to
yep.
remedy that? Plan like as if your project depended upon the time that you take to plan it.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives you an antidote, which is awesome.
Right. Yeah, that think slow, act fast.
Well, I have an engineer we work with in one of my businesses, and he already says for sales estimates, divide your estimate by pi, and for time and cost engineering estimates, multiply times by pi.
And have you
And
had
you
a
know-
chance to use that? Does it
Yeah,
seem
and
to
it
work?
seems pretty accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, I know when I'm planning projects, I'll build out as much of the estimate as I can, and then whatever number I land on, I literally double that number, and that becomes the basis of my project estimation. And that's the only way. And even then, sometimes you run into unexpected issues. So
Yeah,
That's called humility, bro. I think that's called humility, man.
Yeah.
It feels like gouging when you do it, but I think it's probably, you call that humility.
yeah.
Right. So what about what about your opinion of the book? Did it change as you read it? For me, I'll just jump in. I really expected a boring read. I thought this was going to really just be a book about planning, and that just sounded so dry to me, and not even a topic I wanted to read about. But it was a skill I knew I needed. I needed better planning. I needed better tools in my toolbox to approach big projects. So I was expecting to be bored from cover to cover, and instead just the opposite happened. He's giving real world examples. He's using massive examples like the Hoover Dam. He's using a couple remodeling their kitchen as an example, and everything in between. So it really kept me entertained. And I mean, I hate to say it was a page turner, but it was. As far as books go, I was excited to pick it up. I was excited to find out what the next lesson I was going to learn. So my opinion really changed over the course of the book because it wasn't boring. It was interesting, and it kept me engaged. So what about you guys? How did your opinion change over the course of reading the book?
It was the same for me. And while it wasn't a page turner, it was a earbud listener. I don't know, what do you call that? But
There you go. Yep.
I
Virtual
found
page
myself,
turner.
I found myself pretty engaged. Had a hard time putting it down.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I think a lot of business books tend to be really theoretical,
Yes.
Mhm.
and
Right,
this one
right.
had a lot of practical, real world examples that you could think back to and picture the project and how it went wrong. I thought that was helpful too.
Mhm.
Keep it interesting.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was more interesting than I thought it was going to be. So, and I'll kind of leave it I think I'll leave it at that. Like, it was, I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know. And then you get into it and you're like, oh, this guy's kind of funny.
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in a dry, kind of like, the way I picture like a German way of like, this is it, and this is the way. And like, don't mess with don't mess with me. Let's tell the truth. It's just I appreciated his voice that came through, and kind of the practical grumpy. He's kind of like a crank. He's kind of cranky, I think. I think he's kind of a cranky dude. And so,
It feels that way in reading. It's like, why can't you people get this? Why can't you figure this out?
yeah,
I've done this 150,000 times. Why can't you figure it out?
which just made it interesting. And also, I would say, as far as the ethos of the book, it was kind of bar none, right? Like, ethos being like, he established pretty quickly, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not here to waste your time. I'm not here to tell you pie in the sky nonsense. Like, let me start with lots and lots of numbers. and you're like, okay, whatever he tells me from here, I'm probably just gonna believe him. And so I thought that was a huge strength in the narrative.
And who do you think would benefit most from reading this book? Do you guys have people in your own life that you can share this with, recommend it to? For me, it's my department heads, the different people that I'm constantly tasking new projects with. Usually I kind of take on the role of the project planner and then just kind of tell them what's needed instead of giving them more ownership of their portion of the project. And this has made me realize that they've got a lot more to offer than me just kind of delegating to them for them to delegate to their team, but actually get them more involved in the projects earlier on with a better knowledge of the full scope of the project. The example being, and I can't remember which airport, was it Heathrow? Might have been Heathrow Airport, that in the book where they were talking about getting all the subcontractors and contractors as a team instead of them each just kind of knowing their own part and going forward, but instead bringing that team together and having everybody have a sense of ownership over the entire project.
Right.
So that's one of the things I want to see my department heads reading this book and getting from it. So what about you guys? Who do you want to see reading this book in your own lives?
I've got a friend who's looking at building a house, and he's trying to do some parts of it himself, and trying to find a custom builder, and the custom builders are so expensive. And I'm thinking back to this book about, you're trying to do it. You're trying to like build a whole house by making all these parts new.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be able to save money just by getting somebody who's already built a floor plan, or, who can, there's all sorts of different ways to build a house that do not require reinventing the wheel at every stage, which is kind of, I think, what he's trying to do.
Right.
And he's coming back shocked with the numbers, and I'm like, yeah, and it's going to be worse than that.
Right. Those are the known numbers. What are the unknown?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It really helped that guy.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're done with your book anyway. You can hand it on to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get him.
Yeah,
Get
I've
him
talked
reading
to him
it.
about it.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else you think would benefit from the book in your life?
I'm thinking about Caleb and Lydia on my side, who are the project managers, respectively. Caleb's the operations manager, Lydia's the project manager. But to some degree, it's almost like they already think this way in my organization. So I probably would pass to them if I thought it could just even sharpen the edge and hone them like another 10%, which it might. But I wonder who it's written for, because a person like me is the person that needs this more than a person like Caleb, right? I need this, but instead of me learning this book from this guy, I just went and got a Caleb. Caleb. That's so.
Well, so for you, that he's your Lego, right? I mean, he's that piece that's ready to go. He's that piece that you're ready just to plug into your existing structure and have it working.
Yeah, it's more complicated than that, but
right.
Like Caleb is that to me, as opposed to me trying to become that myself by reading a book about it. So,
right.
So it's interesting for me to think who the primary audience of this book is that will benefit more than anything. It's probably a person like me that needs to know how to think, or be introduced to a way of thinking outside themselves, so that they can better recognize their need to partner with other people that have that gift. So low-hanging fruit would be, would be Caleb and Lydia. I don't know who beyond that.
Okay. So we're running up against time. I have just one last question though, and this is the one that was most interesting to me. Is over the course of the book, what did you Google? What was the thing that you had to go look up and research? For me, it was actually the Guggenheim. I knew it was a museum, but I didn't know, living in my uncultured swine world, the depth of the Guggenheim and what it meant, and the fact there was more than one location. I mean, all of these things were new to me. So when I Googled that, it was kind of a rabbit hole that I went down to learn more about it. So what about you guys? What did you look up while you were reading the book? What things did you have to educate yourself on?
For me, it was the Sydney Opera House. Like, that was super intriguing to me, and how insanely that came about. And then, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, who does it that way except a guy who wanted to leave a legacy and had no way to fund it,
Yeah.
So
how about you, Dan?
I don't
Google
remember
anything?
Googling, but I remember really being intrigued by the guy who was building the music recording studio and accidentally created this way that
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Like-
Jimi Hendrix,
like whipping
sound guy.
something with
Mhm.
beaters ended up being this amazing technique that they stumbled across. I mean, that was like kind of their example that went against the point he was making, but it was still
Right.
interesting.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
loved as well. Like, you don't use this as an example because
Yeah.
this isn't normal. But here
Yeah.
is with that 1% that
Yeah.
is the rule breaker that says like, yeah, lightning strikes, and this guy, and he invented what is the modern day sound booth and the modern day music recording studio, and all of
Right.
this came out of this Jimi Hendrix, who was like, hey, I like this kid and his architecture. Let's
Yeah.
see what he can do.
Right.
Yeah, that 1% rule breaker there. Yeah.
I don't have one, but I think that's a stellar question. I'm going to steal from you.
It's yours.
You Google.
Take it, run with it.
Yeah.
Well, like everything we've already said, it's already been recorded. It's already
That's
in
right.
the interwebs.
Now the
And
whole
with
world will know because of
Mhm.
Otter.
because of Jacob's bot. And Johnny,
it.
with that, we're coming to a wrap here. Anybody have any closing statements or anything?
No, for anybody that's watching this and gets to the end, we just want to salute you. Everybody raise your drinks.
Oh, we're
Raise
time for
your
the
drinks.
rock star.
This is the time when we come
Mhm.
together, we drink our liquids of choice,
Mm.
whatever you want. And then just hang out and have some great fellowship around a great book. So I love that we had more people starting to gain a little bit more traction, and hope
Yeah.
to get some more regular attenders so that we can make this something we do throughout the year, 12 months of the year. So
Yeah, Johnny, thanks for creating this space for us, and thanks for the time.
yeah,
Good
no
job,
problem.
Jason.
For leading.
Love it.
Say Don, or we say Dan?
I said, good job, Jason.
Oh, thanks, Dan.
I know.
Happy to do it. It's exciting.
You killed it. You were made for this, bro. You were made for
Stop
this.
it. Stop it. Books are bad monsters.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Take care,
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Yeah.